Hey guys, well, here we are at the end of the year, and this is going to be my final Stews back at the bench for the year. In fact, for the decade, believe it or not, because we're entering a new decade of the 2020s, believe it or not. Frying, isn't it? But there you go. Anyway, you all had a fantastic Christmas and you managed to get plenty of Christmas diarying in. And I've been seeing some people's posts on Facebook and various forums, and it looks like you all did very, very well over the festive period. And another bit of good news is that Kenny from Moonwalker Models is back in the fray. So I saw his video the other night of all his sci-fi projects and aircraft projects he's got lined up for the next year, and it looks quite exciting. So Kenny, good to see you back, bud, and good to see you in the fray. So there you go. I thought it was going to be a very quiet, lonely Christmas for me, but bless her heart, my best friend Brittany Abinader phoned me up on Christmas Eve after shortly me seeing the Star Wars film and invited me over along with her family to spend Christmas Day with them, and it was lovely. I got spoilt rotten and treated like a king. So I want to say thank you very much, for inviting me over, and to your mother, Kathy. I had a fantastic time. It was great spending some quality time with you and meeting your brother for the first time. So there you go. So yeah, she's got heart gold, that girl, and well, our friendship goes from strength to strength. So there you go. And Britt, if you're watching, I hope it's going to be the year that you want, as you notified in your post on Facebook. So I wish you all the best, and obviously we'll be keeping in touch over the next year. So take care, hon. Anyway, moving on from that, I'll just mention more about what is interesting you guys, which is what I've been getting in. And basically, first and foremost, as you can see, I've got a brand new cutting mat, and it wasn't needed before time, because I must admit the state of the old one was getting pretty bad, as you saw in my last update a couple of months ago, covered in paint, etc. So I'm aiming to keep this bugger clean if I can, but we shall see. Did a very good rate on eBay for £10.95 for an A1 cutting mat. It's actually made by a company, if I pull the camera over, called Hennington. So check them out. Very reasonable rate. I was going to go to the works shop and get one or order one, but I saw it's a cheaper rate. I managed to do a click and collect on it, and it's well, it just needed a freshen up on the bench. So there you go. Another thing I managed to get in, which has come in handy, is a little storage unit, which I got from Ultimate Modelling Products for all my pipe cleaners, my little cotton wool buds, brushes, sanders, and obviously cocktail sticks for when I put my figures on for painting, so, or any other bits. So it's a handy little unit. If you look on their website, I think it's about £8.50, and it comes in really handy for storing some of your tools. So there you go. Another thing I managed to get in was a little stowage set, which is going to be for my Panzer II project, which is coming on well, which I shall mention about and show you how far that's got so far. Trying to get this to basically focus in. It's made by a company called Homefront, and this set is called HF0005, so check them out. It's basically resin, and it's got all the stowage sets for any of your armour, etc. So I'm going to be using the smaller ones for the Panzer II, just to add a little bit more detail, as it were, to the actual kit. Also, I managed to get a couple of little tough packs, which you've got there from Serious Play again. I've got the green one, and I've got a slightly autumn one, or one for desert stuff. So that will come in handy for future projects. And then also got some paints in. I've got Vallejo's North Africa set, which you can see here. I've got that one for about £11, I think, on eBay. And I've not used their paints, but I mainly use them for brush painting any figures or anything like that, really, because I've heard they're a bit of a nightmare to put through the airbrush, because they keep locking your airbrush up. So basically that's what I use Vallejo for, is just figures or any sort of detail painting, as it were. Seemed to bed down pretty well, so there you go. And then I've got some more Tamiya paints in, which is XF. Hang on, let me use my glass. Green XF. Oh god, I can't even see it. 5 flat green, which is going to be for my Typhoon class sub. And also the rubber black, which is for my Typhoon class sub XF85 rubber black. Okay, just to give it a bit of tonal variation on the actual hull when I get around to building it. What else did I get in? Oh yes, I got new airbrushing as well. This is a little bit cheap, and it's from China, etc. But it will do me until I get a decent replacement for the HP CS or get that one repaired. Because there's no way I'm not going to use that primer. It is brilliant, and it beds down beautifully. So I thought, well, it's cheap. Okay, might be a bit nasty, but then again, if you're using acrylics through it, the seals aren't going to blooming go away. So it'll do for now. I mean, I picked this one up for about a tenner on eBay, and it's just a handy tool to keep me going for now. So there you go. Also a couple of accessories for dioramas. I can't remember the name of the company this was from, but it's somewhere in China. It's a little ruined building set, which you can see here. That's the instruction sheet. You've got a little frame, etc. Laser cut frame there, which you can see, and then you've got the foam bricks and stuff for the actual main building, etc. So that will come in quite handy for a future project. I think I might do that for my proposed Fury build, and that's basically what it ends up looking like when it's finished, as you can see there. Okay. So that'll come in handy. I think I got that one for about 12 of Fog Models. So they're a blooming good company to get diorama accessories from, and the service is second to none. It's very, very quick and efficient. I find it brilliant. And another one from Fog Models, I've got this one here, which is for a future project, which is a little Russian building. Again, laser cuts, balsa wood, and it actually builds up into a nice little sort of typical Russian hut, as it were. I can't see. That's basically what it'll look like when it's finished. So there you go. That could be a nice one for a Russian diorama. There you go. Possibly one this year, but we'll see. Let's just pop that back. Pop that back in its safe place. And as regards the actual models, got this little beauty, which is Fujimi's Porsche 917K, a 70 Le Mans Golf colour racing car. As in fact, this was the one that was featured in the film Le Mans, if you remember. And this car was the one that was actually driven by Steve McQueen in the film. I just love this Golf colour scheme and the way that it's got that low slung, mean look, and the sound of that Porsche engine. Wow. It does look a nice kit. I will possibly do an inbox review on it. You can get aftermarket wheels in resin. I think I'm going to stick to the ones I've actually got in the kit, although I might see if there's any aftermarket for it for when I get around to getting the build done, and also sourcing some colours to go with the actual car, so we shall see. Next one up, an unusual marine subject, an old sailing ship. It's an old Airfix 1/400th Mary Rose. Little bit something different, little bit something out of the ordinary, but it'd be a good little sort of basis for a weathering project, essentially with wood. And as you know, this was Henry VIII's flagship, which, because it was top heavy, sank. But there you go. And it's preserved down in Portsmouth, where you can see it as well, down in the Naval Museum down there, along with some other artifacts like the Victory and the Warrior. And at present, I believe, if you're lucky enough to get down there before the new year, moored near the actual museum is HMS Queen Elizabeth and HMS Prince of Wales, which is our two newest aircraft carriers. So that would be a sight to see. So there you go. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting little project. Something maybe just as a little sideline, we'll see. Another one I've got, and because obviously at the moment it's the 75th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge, or the Ardennes Offensive, I got this one in, which is the M4A1 Sherman Wet. This one was fairly cheap, because obviously it was a VE day one from about 10 years ago. And it doesn't look a bad little kit, although I may need to get some Mr. Servicer on there to give it some well detail. But it looks a nice little kit, and it could be the basis of a future diorama. And got an old plasticine, which I've got on eBay for about £5. It's packed away in here. It's the old Airfix Mark 1. If I can get the old box open, bear with me. There we are, I'll get the tape away. It's the old Airfix 172nd Meteor Mark II, which was the first squadron to have, which was 616 squadron. Now you can do it in a camouflage version, or as it was used out in Europe during the latter stages of the war, a ground attack, an overall whitewash appearance around about January 45. It's an old kit. It was one that was on auction for eBay, and I thought, well, sod it, I'll snap it up and maybe get some super detail on it. But yeah, should be an easy little build. I have built this kit before, and a gentleman by the name of Mr. Peter Little actually sent this to me. So thanks for getting this to me so quickly, Peter. And I'll look forward to building that at some stage. Possibly this coming year, because obviously we've got the 75th anniversary of the end of the war in Europe, and VE and VJ Day, Victory in Japan, so we shall see. This one I spotted, and I'm not normally into US naval aircraft, but it was at such a cheap rate I couldn't really sort of let it go. It was for about £7, and it's actually the old Revell monogram Sky Raider 85A1E. You've got the option of doing it in an overall night blue scheme, or you can do it in the Vietnam 3-tone camo, or the overall gold, grey and white. So I haven't had a proper look at it yet. It may need some aftermarket just to upgrade it a little bit, but a classic kit all the same. And this was one I actually featured in an inbox review, which I got a tell for. I didn't actually mention it, I think, in my last video, so I'm going to put it in this one. It's this one, which was the 148 Specialist Spitfires from the Airfix Club, which, if you remember, I got at Telford in November from Wonderland Models for the princely price of £9.99. And I think, don't swear by this, I think they've still got it on their website at this price. So if you want to get hold of one, I'll grab it. Now, my thing is I might do it in this night black scheme for the night fighter version, because unbeknownst to me, I didn't know they were used as night fighters, but there you go. And they were based at Debden alongside the, what was it, Bolton Pool Defiant. So, yeah, check it out. RF Debden is still in existence, believe it or not, although it's deserted now. But if you go onto Google Earth, you can actually see that the runways and the Perry track are still there. Although I do believe that it's now going to be developed into a housing estate, which is a great shame because there's a lot of historical heritage there. So have a look. It's quite fascinating to see that a lot of the old airfield is still preserved. So there you go. And if you remember last year, I got the Buccaneer for the air group I'm trying to get together for the old Ark Royal R09. Although the new pennant number on the Prince of Wales, believe it or not, is R09 from the 70s. And if you remember, I ordered a Phantom, but the wrong one was sent. Well, good to see that I managed to actually get the right one this time. So I managed to get Airfix's McDonnell Douglas Phantom FG1 in 892 squadron markings, and I'll be doing a diorama, which I'm thinking about because I saw a guy on an Airfix magazine, I think from last year or the year before. He actually did a scratch built scene where he'd actually done it on the actual waist cap with the actual blast things on it as well, and it looked superb, and it's actually inspired me, as I want to get around to building this, to do the same. So it would look awesome, and I'll probably try and see if I can get some figures for the old deck hands on there as well. Right, this little beauty, when I saw it, I got it on a very, very good deal, and I was extremely lucky. I got this for about, I think it was about £22. I think it was going on the Black Friday deal, and this is Mini Arts T55A, early mod 1965. I've had a look at it. It's got full interior. The detail on it looks absolutely awesome. It could be a possible project for the next coming year, because I want to do a few Cold War tanks. I've got my idea in getting the Chieftain as well, and doing it in the same sort of diorama I did for the Leopard, and this one could be a similar one as well. It looks a beautiful kit. It's got 727 parts in it, and as you can see, the box is pretty blooming deep, and it looks an awesome kit. So that's one I'm looking forward to building. And then lastly, I managed to get this one in, and all the way from China. I got it for about, hang on, let me see, I think it was including post, I think around about 15 to 16.95, and it was this one, which is Trumpeter's Russian Sam-6 anti-aircraft missile vehicle. And I've seen, I think a modeler, I think it was Greg Riley, he built one of these up, and it looked beautiful, and he actually tried to do it where it was firing the missiles, and I've had a look at it, and it is a beautiful looking kit. So it's one I'm really looking forward to building. And that is basically the acquisitions I've had over the last couple of months, guys. Now, build wise, well, oh, actually, there's one thing I did forget to mention before I finish with the acquisitions, was a few other things. I managed to get an Edward detail set in for the Gannet, which I think you mentioned. Remember, I mentioned in the last Stu's Back on the Bench, and the detail on this is all pre-painted, is absolutely exceptional. So that will go very well with me cold Gannet as I'm going to get around to building it. And if you remember, I mentioned in the last Stu's Back on the Bench, I've got the idea of building one of the Wessex from RAF Odium during the 70s when I used to live in Guildford. We used to see them flying over quite regularly then, when they were based there with 72 Squadron. And I told you I was trying to get hold of some lettering for it. I managed to do so because Extra Deck will do lettering sets at the proposed sizes I need. And the actual set is X72065, so that's going to come in handy. And I managed to get hold of this set as well, which is going to be for the actual register number, pennant number for the actual helicopter. So that's an even smaller one. You've even got a little bit Royal Naval stuff on there as well, so that will come in really handy. And that's X72157. So yeah, very, very handy indeed. And as for when I get around to building the Buccaneer, I got this just before Christmas in the Works, which is a shop that's just opened up in my hometown of Bracknell. And if anybody knows of the Works, you can get puzzles and everything else there, even stuff for your modelling. Good books. They've got a good selection of books at ridiculously cheap prices, which would come in handy if you've need to get any reference material. So I ended up getting Haynes Blackburn Buccaneer, all marks 58 to 94, and I got it at a pricey sum of £5. So they were doing a deal. In fact, I think they're still doing it. So if you've got a Works near you, go and check it out, guys. And it's a very nice book. Covers everything to do with the Buccaneer. You've got some superb shots, which this one here. All the development from the NA-39 right up to the S1. It's naval career, history and development, etc. And there's some great shots there. I mean, that's a potential for a diorama where it's going down on the deck lift. And there's all the prototypes. Again, there's the weapons loads that were used. Actually, there's one I would love to do, if I can get hold of one. another Buccaneer, is do it in the anti-flash white scheme of 800 Squadron, because that is it just shows the aesthetic lines of the actual Buccaneer, and that's when they were being trialled out on Victorious. So there you go. Again, there's some lovely shots here which you've got here. Nice sort of draw out plan of all the interior if you want to super detail it, and then various parts of the actual aircraft which you can see there up close. So if you want to do any weathering on engines, open up the engine bay, etc., it's superb reference. And obviously there's a lovely shot of the old Ark Royal here, which is the air group I'm hoping to get built at some stage. So there you go. And she was a lovely ship. It's just a shame they ended up scrapping her, but there you go. And she was the last of her kind. So yeah, it's a very comprehensive book. I fully recommend you get these. And as I say, if you pop down to your local works shop, they've got oodles of them down there for about £5. So go and get one. It really is quite handy to come in for, especially if you're doing your modelling projects, as I will be doing the Buccaneer from Ark Royal for some time. And again, there's more and more detail which you've got here for all the various systems, everything works, everything's maintained, including the aircraft they've got preserved at ground running at Elvington. So there you go, very good book indeed. There we are. So there you go. Yeah, getting on to my projects. Not got a lot of work, mind you. I've got a lot more done on the Panzer II than you saw last time. Basically, the vignette is done, as you can see here. That is pretty much done. I had a little bit of an happy accident actually, because when I was actually peeling off the edge of the actual vignette, I was hoping to get a nice clean square frame, but it ended up sticking off the blooming plaster down. So what I've done is painted around the edges so that it looks fairly aesthetic, as it were, as you can see there. And these grass tufts came in very, very handy. I've got all the rocks weathered up, etc. I might just go over it with a little bit of buff just to give it that sandy effect a little later, but it's pretty much done. And the tank is in its basic colour schemes. I've just got to do some detail paint work on it. I've got the extra aftermarket aerial in place because I wanted to get it with the aerial up instead of being stowed. So that's pretty much built, and the base coat is on. I've done the same with the actual running gear. I've got to touch up and do some detailed paint work on that, and I've just snapped the aerial off in the process of doing this video. That's annoying. Oh well, I'll fit it back on in a bit. Yeah, I've just got to touch up the wheels, as you can see there. So that's in hand. As I say, I've not had any quality time on the bench, unfortunately, and whatever time I've had has just been small. The figures, well, they're coming on well. I'm just in the process of painting them, as you can see here. And I've actually used a different colour wash to give the flesh tones a little bit of flesh tone variation, which is really, I don't know if you can see it, come up really well, especially on this first figure's face in the front here, as you can see, which is the machine gunner. So it's come up really wonderfully, and I think what I'll be using from now on is this colour wash, which is this one here. Whoops, just knocked that over, excuse me. It's getting back on there, if you'll bear with me, guys. I don't know, it seem to be all fingers and thumbs today. So I'll just get him back on his cocktail stick. That's him done. And yeah, I've used this wash here, which is from Game Colour, which is a Lavado Game Flesh Wash. All you do is just brush it on. That's all you do. And as I say, it gets some really nice detail, especially around the faces and on the hands. You get some really nice tonal variation. So I'm going to be using that from now on with my figures, as opposed to just the ordinary black wash, as it were. dark dirt wash from Florey's. So there you go. It just gives it that sense of realism, really. As regards the Dallas, well, I've managed to get that repainted, so I'm just going to go and get it. I'll just move this out of the way. Okay. There we go. Let's move that out of the way as well. And let's grab the Dallas. It's a little dusty because it hasn't been touched in a while. As you can see, oh, excuse me. As you can see here, I've got the actual base coats all redone, including the actual deck line, as you can see here. Now I used for that just the ordinary Tamiya black, because obviously my airbrush went US for the primers, and masked it all off again. And what I did this time, as opposed to mixing the colour for the whole, I actually used Tamiya's whole red, which is more authentic. Hang on, let's get the light in it, as you can see here, which is more authentic to the actual sub. So it's just a matter of getting the detail paint work done. I've got to get the periscopes replaced and scratch built. I'll put a dark dirt wash in it and a little bit of weathering, and then she'll be done, and then it'll be on to the Typhoon class. So there you go. So basically that's as far as I've got with my builds. So really, how long are we getting at now? We're getting at 26 minutes. So as I haven't done many builds of the year, I thought I'd do a little summing up of the two that I did get completed this year. Let's get all this out of the way. Sorry about this, guys. Which was first off was the 25, was it £6 gun, which I managed to get finished. Started off in the latter part of 2018. I managed to get it finished in the early part of this year. This, to be honest, is one of my favourite vignettes that I've done so far. And it came up really well, guys. I was very, very chuffed. It actually came out to the picture that I actually used it from. And it really gives a sense of the scene, of a typical scene in Normandy during the Normandy campaign when they were trying to push forward from the beaches. And again, as I said, basically what I did, built the actual kit up itself, which I believe now is back in production. Used the figures from the kit and some of the actual stowage which I've painted on there. Again, I used various parts from Woodland Scenics, and also serious play with the tufts and the foliage. Ground bait was actually again the stuff I used from Woodland Scenics. This was from a different company, I can't remember the name of. You'll have to look back on my video. But it's basically from the scene I actually saw in a photograph, which unfortunately I can't seem to source now, of a typical scene where they were basically trying to defend an area from any sort of rearguard offensive from the German forces, just in order to clear the path for the Allies to advance. And you've got the sergeant there, you've got the gun crew loading and firing, you've got some rifles on the end there with the ammunition pack, and it really sums up the scene and gives a good story. And I gave it some dusty effects, which you can see there, because if they were firing these things, these roads were never kept in top rate condition because of the war, and obviously you used to get a lot of track dust and dirt going on, so I gave it that dusty look just to give it that sense of realism, as it were. And it is one of my favourites, which I love looking at in the cabinet. And obviously this was all flock from Woodland Scenics as well for the actual hedgerows, as it were. But yeah, very, very happy with this. Very pleased at how it came out. Enjoyed every part of the build and even the research on it. And obviously it was a little tribute to my late Uncle Pete, because he was in the army and used to work on 25 pounders as well out in the Middle East when he did his national service. So that's another thing, that's another one I'm possibly looking at in the future. So there you go. And obviously the other build that I managed to get completed was the Leopard 1A4, which I'll just go and get. There she is. Took its time, but it was a lovely build. It just basically fell together to me as kits normally do. Beautifully engineered. I did a lot of research on it from a book I've got in my research library. Used MIG's mud products and AK's mud products and aftermarket tracks from Meng, which went through beautifully. Admittedly, I did have a few mistakes when I was actually assembling the first lot. Put that on, and obviously with the actual weathering materials which I got from MIG, it fell apart. So basically I thought to myself, right, let's get the track rebuilt again, which I did. And from that I basically put them on and then weathered them up, and which came out a lot better. And with the wet mud effects from MIG, you've got all that and the water effects from MIG as well. It came up really nice, as though it's got that really wet winter or autumn mud look, as it were. So it's the typical scene of a Leopard 1A4 on army manoeuvres. Figures something to be desired, but hey, it'll do. You learned some new weathering techniques on this as well, to give it that sort of slightly faded and tonal variation on the kit. And at the end of the day, it's one of my favourites of this year, to be honest with you. I couldn't be happier with it. I might be doing a similar one with Tamiya's Chieftain, or possibly Tacons. I'm thinking of getting a Chieftain in, because I'm getting really interested in doing Cold War vehicles now, as opposed to World War II stuff, which I love doing as well. So there you go. But I love the way I've got all the splattered mud effects, etc. on it. It really came up a tree, and I loved every minute of this build. I really did. Sad to say those are just the two builds I managed to get complete this year. Obviously because life's been a bit topsy-turvy this year. But hopefully things will even out with this new decade, and I might get a bit more work done. So we shall see. So basically, guys, that is the last Stews Back on the Bench for 2019, and in fact this decade. And I want to thank everyone for getting me to a milestone of 1,000 subscribers. As I say, as I want to get the chance in the new year, I will sort something out for recognising that fact. I might possibly look at doing a raffle giveaway or something, but we shall see. So there you go. That's it for now, guys. So all of you, stay safe out there for the new year. Don't drink and drive, for God's sake, because it could end up costing you, and you could end up costing other people's lives. And if you're going out, be sensible. Don't be silly. All right. Stay safe. Have a great new year, and I'll see you in 2020 with my ongoing projects. So until then, enjoy your time at the benches, get kit crazy, happy modelling, and I will speak to you soon. Cheers.